We're continuing the Sikha of Teira Chadasha Me'iti Teitzei, Shvuas Tavshin and Aleph. We're in Sivav on page 570. Bekivin. So, to summarize what we learned up until this point, this section of the Sikha begins sort of a little bit of a new inyan. The Rebbe is discussing the Taich of Teira Chadasha Me'iti Teitzei. In the Medrash, it says two different meanings to this. One is the new secrets, the hidden secrets of Torah will be revealed. Second is that there'll be an actual chiddush in halacha. And the example we're speaking about in the Sikha is Shchita. The Shchita of the Sheira Bar Lasad Lava will be with the fins of the Leviathan. So the Rebbe explained regarding both of these ideas that it doesn't mean it's going to come by some kind of a prophecy, because then it's not part of Torah. Torah has rules. Torah has to be with seichel, human understanding. The chidushim that are going to come, the derech nevuah, in other words, the taimim that is, the secrets of the taimim, Mashiach will have the ability to take ideas which are really higher than seichel, and yet he'll be able to explain them up with seichel. Similar regarding the chiddush of the halacha of shchita, the Rebbe explained that Mashiach will be able to teach and explain the Sanhedrin, that if you look in the Psukim, you'll see that there's a drasha that this shchita is not included in the halachas of shchita. It's a hirah shah, and it doesn't mean a hirah shah that you could be over on mitzvah shchita, but this shchita was kosher as is. It was never included in the requirement of shchita the way it usually is. That's the point that Rebbe explained. So the Rebbe continues here to tie the two together. Let's continue inside.
Explain how? Where you see that it wasn't included?
No, we'll have to wait for Mashiach to explain that to us. How are we going to understand it without Mashiach? V'kivin shebeis inyan melu, the Rebbe continues these two subjects here. Chiddush bezgalos taimei v'seidus hatera. The chiddush that's going to be when Mashiach comes, the new secrets, the new reasons for the mitzvahs. Chiddush ba'alachas hatera, and the chiddush we find regarding a halacha. We're in Sivav. In this case, we're speaking about heter shchita sheira bar b'sampira leviasan. The heter to shech the sheira bar with the fins of the leviasan. Heim beis pirushim b'teira chadasha. These are two different interpretations in the same two words of a pasuk. That'll be a new teira. Mistave loima. It's logical to say sheyesh kesher v'shayches beineim. These two things are connected to one another. Hainu meaning shachidush ba'alachas haTeira. The fact that there will be certain chidushim in the halachas of Teira. Shayech uba ketotzam his galos taime v'seidus haTeira. It happens, and it's a result of the fact that there will be new reasons explained for Teira. Otherwise, you might think and say these two ideas have really nothing to do with one another. The fact that the Eibusher is going to show us new, deeper understanding of Teira doesn't necessarily cause that there'll be a new chiddush in Teira in the actual halacha. The fact that there's a new chiddush in a particular halacha, shchita, doesn't mean that there are new secrets and reasons for Teira b'chlal. Two unrelated pshatim in Teira Chadasha. But there's a connection between them. Tzarech bir, the question is, Mai ashayches da chiddush Teira sheshchita shedine shchita lo nemru b'negei l'shchita sherabar b'sampiri alev yasan. So what's the connection of this idea that when it comes to shchita, it was not included in the halachas originally because this is a new chiddush that we'll find out when Mashiach comes, liz galos hatayim and v'aseidush b'teira, to the idea that Mashiach will reveal new secrets.
Will anything be new, so to speak, from
Mashiach? What will be new, the marshal? Let's hear.
Nothing
new. What will be new when Mashiach comes?
Said, I think it was the trees will say if it's kosher, not kosher.
So it's not a new halacha. It's a chiddush in the teva of the world that the trees will speak. Okay, but as far as Torah is concerned, Torah will never change. You can't change Torah. Torah never changes. Torah is nitzchias, so that nothing will change.
Maybe things will be revealed that are not revealed now, but nothing's going to change.
The actual halachas of Torah cannot ever change. This detail that it says clearly that it will change, b'negei to shchita, so the Rebbe explains what that means, how it's going to change. So these 2 points are connected. This chiddush in the Hilchas Shchita will be revealed when the Eibusher explains deeper secrets of Torah. Somehow this is expressed in the Shchita. What's the connection dafke to shchita? There could have been so many different things where there should be a difference, a new chiddush that we see in the halacha. Dafke here, but when I get to this detail of shchita, This expresses the new revelation of Mashiach. What's epis? Okay, the Rebbe will begin here with a lengthy introduction regarding something else that we find that will change halacha los lavai. Yesh lavayas ba'agdom as dugmelana. We'll explain this by another example for the point that we're discussing here. Shinri ba'alachas atayda lost lavai, a change in the halachas of Torah when Mashiach comes. Shekosher in darganailis yosef b'Torah, which is also connected to a higher level in Torah that's going to be revealed when Mashiach comes. And this is regarding the arguments, all of the arguments between Beishamai and V'Silo. So the Rebbe here goes through some basic facts about the Machlekesen, how we paskin today, why we paskin today, and how this will change Lasad Lavai. Isa b'Gemara. So the Gemara tells us, Shaloi Shonim Nechlaku Beishamai u'B'Silo. The yeshiva of Shammai and the yeshiva of Hillel argued with one another regarding many halachas for 3 years. So these said, Shammai said that the halacha is like us. And the yeshiva of Beis Hillel said the halacha is like us. Finally, Yatsa Baska v'Omra Elu v'Elu Divrei Elokim Chaynein. Both opinions are true words of Hashem, but halacha ke Beis Hillel. The final halacha remains like Beis Hillel. That's the story the Gemara describes. Now, this Gemara is difficult to understand. Why are they relying on a baska? One of the basic things that Rebbe keeps on repeating in the Sikha is you cannot rely on Torah b'Shamayim. You can't rely on a prophecy, on a baska, to paskin a halacha and Torah. So if they can't figure out if the paskin like Basil and Beishamai, a baska is the one that finally settled the machlekes. How could that be? Why? But then we say
you have to pick one, but not that the other one is wrong.
But this is part of the baskel, though. Yeah, true. But the baskel is saying 2 points. The baskel was saying both of them are words of Torah, but yet the final halacha will be like Beis Hillel. So in the end of the day, we're relying on a baskel regarding the second point of halacha ke Beis Hillel. So the Rebbe explains, Va'av she'em mashgichim bebaskel. So the rule is we do not pay attention to a baskel, as great as a heavenly voice may be. But nevertheless, when it comes to halacha, Torah is not to be determined by anything that comes from heaven. It has to be explained and understood al pi seichel over here below in this world. How do you usually determine a psaktin in Torah? What's the usual process? So you have to take account. When the Chachamim in the times of the Gemara, the Mishnah, they had to see what the halacha is like, so they looked who was arguing and they took account to see what the majority opinion is. So over here, the Rebbe explains what happened. The truth is, the reason why we paskin like Beis Hillel is not because of the heavenly voice. Because Beis Hillel were the majority, and the Rebbe is quoting it from the Tosfos there. The only reason they needed a baskel is Ela Mishum the Beis Shammai havo charifi tvei. It's because Beis Shammai were sharper. Another expression. They were sharper in their explanations. So on one hand, you have Beis Hillel, that was the majority. Their yeshiva was larger, and those that followed Beis Hillel's opinion was larger. Yet at the same time, Beis Shammai was sharper. They explained things better. They answered better all the questions in their opinion. So now you have a reason to paskin like Beis Hillel and a reason to paskin like Beis Shammai. So therefore, what this means is when the baska seemingly is coming to argue on the words of Torah. Meaning there's an argument here in Torah, and then the baskel is sort of interceding. So usually the reason we don't pay attention to a baskel is because baskel is irrelevant. We have rules of what the paskin like. Avol in this case is different. If the baskel is coming to figure out what we do in this situation where there's a suffix, why is there a suffix? Because there's actually a good reason to paskin like Beis Hillel, and there's also a good reason to paskin like Beis Shammai. Like in the case of the argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. The rule says that you have to follow majority. You have to paskin like Beis Hillel. But they still had a doubt about this. In other words, they couldn't actually decide to paskin like Beis Hillel. Because Beis Shammai's arguments were very strong, and they held them back from pasking like Beis Hillel. From the lashon that the Rebbe is explaining, this is all based on the Tosfos. So, just from the lashon that the Rebbe is saying here, it seems like the pshat for this is. It may seem like that you might think the pshat is as follows: that we sort of have a reason to say to Paskin like Beis Hillel, we have a reason to say to Paskin like Beis Shammai, and the Baskel is telling you choose the reason of Rav. But that's not the correct shot, because then still you're using a Baskel in a case where you don't know who to Paskin like. What's the difference? Why are we relying on a Baskel? What's in a regular case? In a regular case, you have no majority. Let's say it's a case where there are Chachamim that are arguing, and for whatever reason you can't take account, or you do take account, and it turns out that it's two equal opinions. It's 10 Tanaim arguing against 10. So there's no, you can't use any Rav over here to Paskan halacha. Or the arguments that are being made, there are questions and answers in every tzad, so you have no way how to determine who's right and who's wrong, who we're going to Paskan like. So you're going to rely on a Baskel. What is Taisus saying? What's the story in this case? You actually have a positive reason to Paskan like Beis Hillel, and you also have a positive reason to Paskan like Beis Shammai. So what's the difference? When you have no reason who to Paskan like, we don't Paskan like a Baskel. If you actually have a reason why to Paskan like opinion A and opinion B, like Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, you also shouldn't rely on a Baskel. In the end of the day, it's the same thing. You're using a Baskel to determine who the halacha is like. So what's Taisus saying here? So if you look at, one second, let me just explain this point here. So if you look into the words of what the Rebbe is saying here, really, the fact that Beis Shammai was smarter, sharper, and had good answers for all the questions and their opinions isn't a reason to Paskin like their opinion. That doesn't play a role b'chlal. And we only have one thing to look at. The pasuk says, "Achrei rabim lahates." We follow the majority opinion. So really, it was clear without the Baskel that the halacha is like Beis Hillel. But Beis Shammai was arguing very strongly, and they sort of didn't let Paskin like Beis Hillel. People heard the arguments of Beis Shammai, and they couldn't come to Paskin like Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai just didn't let the actual halacha come out to be. So the Baskel confirmed the fact. Once the Baskel came out, so now Beis Shammai quieted down. They realized the heavenly voice is saying, like the majority opinion, so all of the opinion, Beis Shammai stopped arguing. That's what happened. So the Baskel for Beis Hillel is just confirming what we know anyways, based on what it says in the pasuk. Achrei rabim lahates. Okay, it's inside the words over here. So therefore, we're not going against any rule in the Torah. It's just confirming the fact that we know, the pasuk says, that we paskin like Beis Hillel. Okay, now the Rebbe takes a step back here actually and brings us the whole history, b'negeh, to the arguments that you have in Gemara. Generally, all the different arguments you have in Gemara, not only Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, but Bechlal, the Gemara is full of arguments. Every single Mishnah, Kedisa, the Gemara itself explains this. Divrei Chachamim kedarvainis gamer. The words of Chachamim are like darvainis. Darvainis is, I believe, this.
In Hebrew, there's a kedarvainis means like stand.
That's the taich, yeah.
Strong.
I think it means when the animal goes in the field and it plows in the field. So there's a certain piece of metal that keeps it in the line to be able to go down one line, and it doesn't go from one side or the other one. It's like it keeps it straight. Yeah, keeps it in line. So the words of Chachamim are kedarvainis. Balei Asufais, all of those that gather the different halachas of the Torah, nitnu miraya echad. All the various opinions. It seems like that they're just speaking their own mind. They're saying that what they think, their own opinion, but it's not true. They're all accepting what they got from their Rebbe, and from their Rebbe higher and higher until Moshe Rabbeinu. Elu Tamid Chachamim sheyeshrim asufais va'iskim b'Torah. So you have Tamid Chachamim that gather together and learn Torah, and they say all kinds of opinions. Halal metamin. There are those that say tameh, halal metarin. Others say toy. Halal oisrin, halal matirin. Some say asa, some say mutter. Halal paislin. Some say pasol. Next page. And halal machshirin. And some say kosher. So you see this and you say, wait a minute. Are Chachamim teaching us Torah? Are they telling us what they heard from their Rebbe back to Moshe Rabbeinu? Shema yema Adam. This is all the Gemara is saying. So a person will say to himself, how can I learn Torah this way if I just get confused, all these different opinions here? Talmud Loimar. So therefore, the pasuk teaches us, Kulam nitnu miraya echad. They are all given from one shepherd, Keil echad, from one God. Nasnan gave it to us. Parnas echad amran. One leader, Moshe Rabbeinu told it to us, Mepi Adon Kol Hamaysim Baruch, from the master of all of creation, the Eibishter. Kol Advarim Eila includes all of the various opinions that we have in Mishnah and Gemara and so on. It all comes directly from the Eibishter. The Medrash describes this as well. Al Kol Dava V'Dava. when the Eibishter himself was teaching Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu LeMoshe. The Eibishter himself tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Memtes Panim Tamei and Memtes Panim Toy. He gave him 49 reasons why this situation should be Tamei and why this situation should be Toy. So the Eibishter himself said both opinions. So it's not that these Tanaim are just from their own mind coming up with this. The Eibishter himself said this way. Ama Moshe. So when Moshe hears the Eibishter teaching him Torah this way, so he says to the Eibishter, Rebbeinu Shalom, Master of the universe, Masay Named al Birurin Shel Dvarim. So how are we going to figure out like what to actually do? What's the truth and what's not the truth? This is Torah. Torah is 49 opinions like this and 49 opinions like this. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so the Eibishter answers, okay, but I myself will give you a method what to do, how to paskin. Achrei Rabim Lahatais. You'll follow the majority opinion. Rabbi Metamin Tomei. Majority says Tomei, it'll be Tomei. Rabbi Metarin Toy. Majority says Toy, it'll be Toy. So what do we understand from this? All the opinions in Torah are repeating what the Eibishter himself said, and then the Eibishter himself says how to paskin. It's all part of Torah. Yeah, that's the idea. Which means as there are many things in Torah as it is. You could have one subject in Torah, one circumstance, one situation, and you can come away with two opposite conclusions. The Rebbe gives a simple example for this, which is brought many times, regarding the Mabul, where you have one idea and you come away with two opposite conclusions. Take a look in Order 52. And as we see, you could have one idea, but it could actually bring two opposite results. What do you actually do? And what is that? The fact that the Eibishter says, look at the human being. The human being is so evil. So therefore, what did the Eibishter come to the conclusion? In the beginning, the person deserves to be erased from the face of the earth, because look how evil he is. That's in the end of Parshas Bereshis. Then what does it say after the Mabul? The same exact point. The human being is so evil, and so therefore, since there's an evil that I created him with, it's not any fault of his own, so he doesn't deserve this kind of a punishment. We're using the exact same reason, and yet first the psak din was that you have to be erased, and then later the very same reason is being used for the opposite, as a merit to save the people from being erased again. So that shows you that from the Eibishter's Chachma, you could have the same idea and it can go in two opposite directions. Now, if the Rebbe here is bringing an example that we could understand in our human minds, how one idea can go in two opposite ways, and you see this all the time, even outside of Torah. People have a conversation about something, and you're talking about one subject or one circumstance, and two people walk away and have two completely opposite opinions about it. They're talking about the very same thing, but they have different approaches, different opposite solutions, right? All the time. It's human nature. How much more so when it comes to the Eibishter's Chachma, which is Ein Sof. So the fact that it says here in the Medrash, Memtes Panim Tomei, Memtes Panim Toy, that's even that is not really the full picture here. The truth is, the Eibishter was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, Bli Gvul, unlimited approaches one way and the other way. Torah is endless. As much as you learn in Torah, you could always see another layer, another idea, another approach, another aspect, because Torah is coming from the Eibishter, which is Ein Sof. So the fact that you have opposite conclusions in the same exact subject is not a pella at all. It's all coming from the Eibishter. Ushneimem is back into the Sikha itself. They're both true. Elu ve'elu, divrei Elokim chayim. It's all the words of the Eibishter, which is chayim, which is life and truth. V'achra b'zeh. Now, how do you come to the final conclusion what to actually do? It's only with the Chachamim that have to put their minds to it and think about this and come to a conclusion. How the majority opinion understands this. As they see fit, which means we trust the human mind. The Eibishter gave over the kayach to a yid. It's an unbelievable thing if you think about this. Shayrish of Torah is l'mayla, where by the Eibishter, which is Ein Sof, which is unlimited. And therefore, because the Eibishter is so unlimited, so the Torah naturally contains in it so many opposite ideas all in one. And it's not a contradiction, because it's all part of, when you have something which is so infinite, it's not going to be defined into one approach, into one, that's limitation. Torah is unlimited, so therefore it has all these opinions. And how do you get the actual psak din? The Eibusha says the little mind of a human being that's so limited and so small, he, with his understanding, is going to put his mind to it and analyze, and he will say what the final conclusion is, how we do a mitzvah, and everything in Yiddishkeit is determined by the seichel of the chachamim in this world. Not by the Ein Sof that there is Lamaila. The Ein Sof that there is Lamaila is infinite. It's not applicable. We can't apply it to real life in our world. The way we apply and live Yiddishkeit in our world and over here below is by the seichel of the chachamim in this world. Chol davar v'davar lefi inyanim. In every matter, according to what that matter is.
But we still see that even down all the way down to Achar Achronim.
Yes.
You have this Yosef and you have the Ramon. And they're they're one line apart. And each one could be saying completely different.
Yeah, correct. So the machlokes continues. The machlokes is not only in the times of the Tanaim, the Amirayim, and then all the way down to our generation as well. It's constantly arguments. Do you have to put a blech into your crock pot, or do you not have to put a blech into your crock pot? I can give you another 10 examples, right? So the machlokes in the...
We used to say a sicher. He heard it this way, and this what he wanted to hear, and
I'd get punctured. Yeah.
But that's also an extension of Eidel different.
Correct. Okay, but here the Rebbe has a nice point, an important point in Order 55, right? We're talking over here, the Rebbe says that the Chachamim use their human mind to come and determine what the halach is al pi Torah. But the Rebbe says, let's not forget who we're speaking about. We're talking about holy Tanaim and Amirayim. So v'gam al pi amavua b'kama mekaymis. So it's explained in many places. The Rebbe is quoting from a mime of the Mittler Rebbe and Biuri Azayar, Shetanaim v'Amirayim agdailim. The great Tanaim and Amirayim, they actually didn't just learn Torah and analyze the idea just with their brain, with their human mind to understand what Torah is saying. They saw the Torah, the source of the Torah, the way it is above. When it says before that the Eibusha spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he told him 49 panim tameh, 49 panim tahir, these Tanaim and Amirayim knew and heard and understood those ideas that the Eibusha himself said. They saw the source of the concept Beruchnius in Gan Eden. Even higher. So now the question is, how does that fit with the point that the Rebbe is trying to make in the Sikha? That sof, the actual psak din has to be according to the seichel of a human being here below. But the Mittler Rebbe says, no, it's not that way. These holy Tanaim and Amirayim actually saw the Torah the way it is Lamaila. So still, in the end of the day, that's Torah Bashamayim. Yeshleima, so the answer is, Zehu la'achere shiriyasam lamaila yarda v'neslapsha b'seichel anushi. Yes, true, they saw the shaydish of the Torah lamaila. But if they could not explain it al pi seichel here below, then the fact that they saw this lamaila would be irrelevant. Shalachain, ein ze b'stiri la'aklal de sh'Torah leb'shamayim. So it's not a contradiction. They learned Torah in Olam Yisrael Yainim, but they brought it down in their seichel here below. The Gemara explains everything al pi seichel. And sometimes you learn a piece of Gemara and it doesn't make sense to you. The reason is because you're learning something that they saw l'mayla in Olam Yisrael Yainim. But at the same time, once it's written down in the Gemara, it could be explained and it has to be explained. If it cannot be explained, it's not part of Torah. So that's what these great Tanaim and Amirayim accomplished. That's the famous word that says Nayim Yom, right? That the Torah until the times of the Taz and the Shach were written al pi Ruach HaKodesh. Right? So this is this idea that the Mittler Rebbe is saying. But at the same time, the Taz and the Shach wrote their Sefer. They didn't just write Ruach HaKodesh words. They wrote Sfaras, they wrote ideas, they wrote questions, answers, explanations. So l'chayr, if it's all Ruach HaKodesh, why is it necessary to have such a long Shach, such a long Taz, and Matter in the 11th mentioned to have to read and understand all these things? It's Torah Bashamayim. They saw it, they saw the Emes Bashamayim, but then they explained it al pi seichel. So the point that the Rebbe says in the Sikha remains, which is a dava nifla ma'id, that what makes something Torah when a seichel anushi of a person here below understands it. That's what makes it part of Torah. If you cannot explain it, so can sein emes la mitoy mitzad nevuah l'mayla, but it does not become part of Torah.
You can't live in talk about
correct. Yeah. In other places, the Rebbe actually, if you think, the Rebbe here doesn't give the hezbollah for this, but this is mamash adava nifla, the fact that it only becomes part of Torah because of a klein seichel is be'am oiz gekommen. He could explain that this is the way it is. I mean, he sees a nevuah l'mayla. Nevuah. No, it's not part of Torah. But he could explain al pi seichel why it's so, becomes part of Torah. It's a adava nifla b'yaser. Yeah. Oh, muss man sagen, so the Rebbe explains in other places that sof werde der kleine seichel ayid. Sof, das is ayid. Nevuah is very great. Big giluyim l'mayla. But who's the seichel? The Gemara says in Bab Metzia, nitzchuni bana nitzchuni. Sof, werde der seichel, meine Kinder. This is the fact that you understand this way. This is a koyach, that this is the opinion of the Eibish's children. This has a murder the koyach. That's the idea over here. Okay, I think we're going to stop over here. We're in the middle of an Indian, but it continues. So we'll have to stop over here. Continue next week in Metz Hashem. Will we continue next week? Actually, where are we holding? Yeah, next week is So next week we're on. Yeah, Vizuhi. That's where we're holding. Rosh Hashanah. I don't think we're going to have a share on Rosh Hashanah. Okay.